Hey everyone, I'm Derek, and welcome back to Sax Spy, where I uncover the best vintage and modern saxophone gear, Vinty and Minty. And today I'll be unboxing the Boston Sax Shop Superlative Ligature for tenor saxophone, sent to me courtesy of Jack Finucane at the Boston Sax Shop. Now, for those of you that follow me on Instagram, you know that I've had the prototype model for a couple of months now, and I have some really positive things to say about it, but today's gonna be a little bit different. I'm gonna go over the production model, show you all of the details about it, which mouthpieces it fits, and in another video I'll do a comprehensive review. So let's open this up. All right, here we have the Boston Sax Shop Superlative Ligature. I did take off the address label, but it does ship in this small box, unless you get, some more things. And inside we have a couple of items neatly packed away. Of course, we get a classic BSS sticker in black and silver. I like to put these on my notebooks or on my hard drives. So next up is the mouthpiece cap, and I don't believe this one has a special name, but you can buy it alongside the ligature or separately. It's only about $5. You can see that this is an all-plastic cap designed to match the shape of the mouthpiece rather than to be a generic cylindrical shape. What makes this interesting to me is the dual top and bottom cutouts, and that was designed to allow it to fit over inverted ligatures like the Superlative Ligature or standard ligatures like the Vinty Selmer 2-screw. The cap seems to be thicker in general than most other caps that I have, and the top is actually sealed off so it doesn't have any air vents. Usually I will seal off my caps, and so it's kind of nice to just have that built in where I don't have to worry about my reed drying out, especially when I'm at such low humidity. Finally, we have the Superlative Ligature that comes in its own box, but I want to let you know that in a previous take I managed to completely destroy this box, but I can assure you it came looking perfect. It wasn't crumpled or creased as you see here. And I'm really sorry, Jack. I know that you took a lot of care to package it well, and I totally wrecked it. The top has the classic silver logo, which tends to match the aesthetic of the custom reed boxes. I like how that's a pattern that's coming up. The side features what I believe to be a signature. It looks like JF for Jack Finucane, and my best guess is that he put this here for the models that are hand stippled because he did that work. Moving down to the bottom, we see a bunch of different ligature types and plating styles, which to me means two different things. First, there's hope to see this ligature made for alto, soprano, and for metal pieces. And second, I want to get my hands on the gold and silver versions to show you. For now, this is the hard rubber tenor model in stippled brass. Inside the box, the ligature comes surrounded with two pieces of foam, one on top and one on bottom, and a plastic bag, possibly to protect the brass. This model is unlacquered, and it is polished as well, so it is nice and shiny, but it should get a patina over time. The BSS logo is stamped right in the middle of the reed plane, with thin lines that contain the stippling that Jack does across the top and bottom. Jack has this tool with a moving tip that creates the stippling pattern. Think of it like a mini jackhammer. This is of course an inverted ligature, so the screws are facing to the right and they're on top. At first look, this may seem like a ring ligature with two screws on it, but there's some interesting shapes involved, and it's not that simple. On the top, we have this first radius, which has a slightly flattened section, which I like to refer to as the reed plane, and it's larger on top to accommodate the reed thickness so that there is some space on each side of the reed, and only the plate touches the reed. It has a greater slope on the side than it does on the back with the screws, and that's so that it fits the shape of the reed on the mouthpiece, whereas the backside with the screws is to fit the radial nature of the rest of the mouthpiece. On the bottom of the ligature, you can clearly see a distinct narrow shaping of the reed plane. The sides are closer to the plate on the bottom since the reeds tend to taper there. The end result of this is a ligature that gives proper space on both the top and bottom of the reed so that it's only touching that reed plate, and we have plenty of space on both sides of the reed at the top and bottom. The reed plate itself also has a cutout in the middle. It sort of looks like an iris or like a flattened oval with points on the end. It's a nice stylish look, but I imagine it also helps reduce some of the weight and contact points with the reed. This should look like a pretty familiar screw design because it's clearly inspired by the Vinty Selmer 2-screw, which Jack has mentioned many times throughout his design process. I wanted to show you how this ligature fits with a variety of different mouthpieces. I'll be using my Boston Sax Shop Custom 3 reed for the fitting. This is my main reed, and I've used it on a lot of videos. First up is the D'Addario Select Jazz D7M, which I find to be a particularly interesting mouthpiece with this ligature. The body diameter of the D7M is slightly smaller than most mouthpieces, so a lot of ligatures really struggle to work with it. Even D'Addario's own H ligature isn't built to fit this mouthpiece, which is silly, and that's long been a point of grievance. This ligature was designed specifically to be able to accommodate this mouthpiece. The screws have enough room on the end, so you have room for adjustment, and the stippled brass looks amazing with the marbled ebonite. Overall, this is a great fit, and this is the ligature that I use on my D7M. Here is one of the larger bodied mouthpieces that I own, a Reface Selmer S80C Star. And for this one, I needed to open the screws up a little bit, of course, coming from that D7M, but it still didn't reach the max size yet, and I had room to work with it. So I set the ligature close to the ligature line for reference, tightened it down, and I think it works great. Next up is my Sumner, which is the closest stand-in that I have to a tenor Meyer mouthpiece. And this is the most traditional, most standard sized mouthpiece that I have. I usually like to keep the ligature from overhanging on the beak, so I like to keep it past there. And putting it there, this ligature fits just fine with this mouthpiece. The screws are even, and the taper of the mouthpiece is pretty even as well. This blue mouthpiece is the Sio Signature Chad LB8 Star that I've reviewed in a couple of previous videos, so you can always go check those out. The Sios body design is a little wider in the back, so I had to adjust the screws a little bit differently, but the ligature still works. You can see that the back has a little bit wider taper, so I had to let those screws out just a little bit. So I'd recommend the Superlative Ligature with any Sios tenor mouthpiece without any hesitation. Here we have the embodiment of Vinty and Minty, which is my Vinty Selmer Soloist Short Shank. And of course I had to include this one because of its legendary status as a really solid mouthpiece design. As with most of the other medium mouthpieces, this one fit evenly, and it has an evenly tapered body, so the screws were even. And I expected this because the Superlative Ligature is based on the Vinty Selmer 2 screw, and so it should fit the mouthpiece that it originally came with. So use this on your soloists all day. Works great. You'll recognize this mouthpiece from a previous video I did. This is the 10M Fan Classic 7 Star Star, and I actually used this as the mouthpiece model for when I was fitting the original prototype of the BSS ligature. The gold lettering on the mouthpiece also matches really well with that stippled brass. It's kind of a cool look, and you'll see some awesome pictures of that soon on my Instagram. Finally, I had some requests to try the Superlative Ligature with a thin berry mouthpiece like the Van Doren V16 B9. For myself, until this point, I'd been using a Francois Louis Ultimate Ligature for tenor as well, and sure enough, the Superlative Ligature fits the same. I've always said that these V16s for berry are more like tenor mouthpieces in their size, so there's a bit of room on either side if you need a tight ligature, but this one would work great. So these are the few mouthpieces that I was able to try personally, but I do know that this would fit the Jody Jazz HR Star, which I was able to try afterwards, the Theowani older hard rubber mouthpieces, not the newer ones that are a little bit thinner, and vintage Autolinks like the Slant Signature and Rezo Chamber. And also, of course, you know, the Retro Revival mouthpieces that are based on some of these. This should fit those as well. So going back to the mouthpiece cap, with both the Selmer 2 screw and the BSS Superlative ligatures, the tip seems to be safe from getting dinged. As you can see here, I whacked this combo with some pretty hard force, which is admittedly pretty dangerous, but I wasn't worried because, you know, there's no impact on the tip of the reed or the mouthpiece, and when I took it off to check, there had been no damage. Part of that is interesting because the mouthpiece cap wasn't even pushed up against the screws, which is what normally keeps a mouthpiece cap from moving on, so I wonder how that design factors in. Don't do this yourself with your mouthpiece, just let me do it. But one thing I won't even do myself is to test this with the metal Selmer cap, even though I have some closed cell foam on the inside. I've had too many hard rubber mouthpiece tips get dinged by these caps, so I'm gonna have to pick up a couple of these mouthpiece caps. They seem a lot safer and more versatile because I can just throw them on any of the ligature combinations that I have. And honestly, a metal cap with any material mouthpiece is a liability. It's just waiting to get dinged or chipped, and it's not gonna protect it much more than a plastic cap would anyway. So what do you think? Will this ligature live up to its name? Like this video, leave a comment down below with your answer, and subscribe so that you catch all of my future videos. If you want to get this ligature, use code SACSPY to save 10% and it'll help support the channel. You can also support the channel by joining my Patreon for only a couple of bucks a month, and you get all sorts of behind the scenes and bonus content. Link in the description down below. And as always, keep an eye out for all things Vinty and Minty.